Articles of Confederation. Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. Excuse me, you guys, it's getting. What might happen if every state issue its own money currency? There were no presidents of the United States. What might happen if the United States Supreme Court didn't exist? What would happen if the government couldn't afford to pay members of the armed forces? Each of these scenarios were true during the first few years of the United States' existence. After declaring independence from Great Britain and during the Revolutionary War, the government of the 13 colonies was defined by the Articles of Confederation. Definition of Confederation: an agreement to support one another. Remember, a government is a system of laws which is used to govern its people, keep order, and provide for the nation's defense. Weakness of the Articles of Confederation. In addition to every state issuing its own form of currency, having no leader over the central government, like a president, no national court, and not being able to fund a military. There were numerous other issues with the Articles of Confederation. And notice the sign Problems Ahead, which is similar to the sign on the ship. Weakness of the Articles of Confederations. While each state had agreed to support one another under the Articles of Confederation, since there was no form of a strong central government overseeing them, they each did as they pleased. Examples include each state having their own laws, own tax system, and own trade policies. Weakness of the Articles of Confederation. Under the Articles of Confederation, the Congress was the only form of national government. However, as discussed earlier, there was no president or Supreme Court, so there was no way to enforce the law that Congress passed. Another weakness of the Articles of Confederation, making things even more difficult. In order for Congress to enact a new law, delegates of 9 of the 13 states had to vote in favor of it, and each state, no matter how many delegates they had, only received one vote. Weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Interestingly, the Articles of Confederation was meant to be weak. This is largely due to the colonists' fears and concerns over having a strong central government, much like the British and other European nations had. Many colonists felt that a strong central government would grant too much power to one individual, much like a king or queen in a monarchy. For example, King George III of England. Economic depression. Making matters worse, shortly after the Revolutionary War, the nation fell into a deep economic depression. Since each state had its own currency under the Articles of Confederation, it was difficult for merchants and farmers to conduct trade because they often didn't know how much to sell them for in order to make it a profit. Economic depression continues. And economic depression is a sustained long term decrease in economic activity. With less economic activity, people buying and selling goods, businesses are less prosperous. To stay in business and save money, businesses will often do one or all of the following: stop hiring, terminate the employment of current employees, reduce the wages of current employees. Economic depression. The economic depression was especially difficult for farmers, as many of them could no longer afford to pay the loans back to the banks, loans they used to purchase their farms. Economic depression. The banks began to foreclose on the farmers who were delinquent paying back their loans, and many of these farmers ended up losing their property. Shays Rebellion. During the 1786 in Massachusetts, around 1,200 upset farmers, led by a man named Daniel Shays, rose up against the United States government in armed rebellion. The farmers refused to pay their taxes, attacked tax collectors, overtook local courthouses, and destroyed official government and court documents. A tax collector being attacked by upset farmers. Under the Articles of Confederation, the national government was so weak that it had virtually no way to put down the rebellion. State troops eventually ended the rebellion, but after all was said and done, many Americans began to wonder if other such rebellions would threaten to tear the young country apart. Make sure you listen to the recording as you're answering the questions on your assignment.